Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch the Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show. I am the Dude.
And I am Grim, and today we are very excited to be talking about a favorite, Kid A by Radiohead. Son of a bitch, dude, I could not find my special edition kids style book CD, but I do have it somewhere. So I just had to pull out my measly dual 7-inch vinyl, you know.
Yeah,
but here we 12, are. But, yeah. Well, this was all they had at the record store when I bought it. I honestly thought that with the length of this one, and I don't have the length in front of me. 49.56 is just a little too long.
Like, subscribe, and comment below. It doesn't happen very often, but it does.
Yeah, so they did it on two 7-inchers, 33 RPMs. And, dude, I mean, I was very fortunate to get a good vinyl setup. And, man, there was nothing that sounded as awesome as opening that record, having it never been played, and putting on everything in its right place for the first time. It certainly wasn't its right place.
It's pretty awesome.
But
it is. But
I digress.
But you should digress, because before we get into it, for all you first-timers, this is the podcast where we pick our favorite albums. We discuss them, and we discuss each track on the album.
Now, if you remember the days when you had things like, I don't know, vinyl records or the special edition CD that El Deuteronimo held up there or is holding up, you might remember when you did something stupid like you took it to the fucking beach. And you know what? Something inevitably got scratched. And so the whole premise of this show is, what if you could choose which track got scratched? Not saying you want to scratch one, but it's probably going to happen even to this nice thing that was brand new only a couple of years ago. So we basically review the album, talk about the aspects of it we really like, or just some interesting information, and ultimately go head to head and decide, what are you going to scratch? If you had to.
We're basically playing God. Sorry if that's blasphemous to some people out there, but that's essentially what we're doing. And
I never thought of it like that. That's fucked up.
Dude, case in fucking point. Like, dude, I don't know if you probably can't see it, but I'm showing it for the camera here. There are some scratches on this disc, man. And you want to know why? Because I played the shit out of it.
Yeah.
I played it so much. So much. Also, I'll say this special edition case, the way it fits in, like it's like
it's a real tight one.
Even just taking it in and out. Yeah, it's a tight one, you know. So
I almost feel like, in a way, CDs, if you take care of your records, CDs were almost more conducive to it, because, dude, you would do dumb shit. Like, you'd be like, of course I'm going to take this to the beach with, like, a portable, you know what I mean? You wouldn't do that shit to it. You can't do it with a vinyl.
Or it's just in your car, and it's just, you know, like you drop it between the seats.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Oh, shit.
You know, whatever. Yep. Whoops. All right. So anyways, back to Kid A. That's what you're all tuned in for. Probably in my top 10 albums of all time, maybe top 5, depending on the day. Love it. Amazing. Same with OK Computer. But this album, dude, their fourth effort, October 2nd, 2000. So, dude, the year of 2000. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I just remember, which this would have also made sense, but this, for me, was freshman year in college.
We were merely freshmen
in college. And I had really got into OK Computer. You know, I was totally on the thing of like, dude, this is our generation's Dark Side. You know,
Dark Side.
Yeah. Really love that album. And like a lot of people, when I picked this one up, I kind of thought to myself, like, this was going to be some sort of continuation on that. And it was not at all. It was in a total another world,
different stratosphere.
And and full disclosure, I was not sure about it at first. I mean, there were some parts of it that I liked right away. You know, if you were a fan of OK Computer, you could probably listen to, let's say, like Optimistic the first time and be like, okay, this is sweet. Because it's not that much of a departure. Or maybe even the National Anthem, just because that bass line is so nasty. How to Disappear Completely. But some of the other stuff was a little like dense, and I wasn't really sure of it. But I mean, now it's easily my favorite Radiohead album. No question.
Okay, so
no question.
Yep. Okay. I would probably still gravitate towards OK Computer, but I mean, dude, if there's anything if you can have a kid A and a kid B, like this is it, you know. I mean, that's, you see what I did there.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing is, you know, with this album, obviously it came out and a lot of people were like, what the fuck? I remember hearing people calling it shit A, and people didn't know what to think of it. But having done a lot of research on it, and obviously this is my favorite band, or one of my favorite, probably my favorite band. You know, I understand why they went in the direction they did. And there's some, I checked out some interviews and whatnot, and a couple of things that were just like really poignant in why they decided to do this. You know, Colin Greenwood said, you know, we felt we had to change everything. There were other bands out there trying to do similar things, and we had to move on. Yeah. And Tom York said similar things of, yeah, there were people, he was like, I was just tired of hearing myself, and not just hearing myself from Radiohead songs, but in other bands. He said, you know, they had lost interest in playing the guitar, which I can totally get, because for OK Computer, dude, they were on tour for like 2 years. Yeah. I mean, touring the world, playing those same songs over and over and over and over again. And as amazing as those songs are, man, after a while, and that was a very intense, stressful tour for the band and for Tom. And they weren't mentally prepared, I think, for everything that came along with all the success that record was going to have. And so they just said, hey, we're going to do something completely different. And that's exactly what they did. Yeah.
And I think that's to me what's so interesting about it, because it's like it's this interesting way of songwriting that is not in what you would think of, I guess. You listen to some of this and you're like, how would you write that song? Like, how did you come up with this? Yep. And one thing that I thought was interesting is Tom York, I guess, had bought a house in Cornwall, and it said that he spent a lot of time walking the cliffs and drawing and restricting his musical activity only to playing a newly acquired grand piano. And he described himself as like a shit piano player. Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but I see if you're comparing yourself to like fucking Rachmaninoff, sure. But, and I think it said the first song that he wrote was Everything in Its Right Place. Yeah. But I like, and it also, another important thing was that he didn't have a big knowledge of electronic instruments. He said that he didn't know what ADSR meant. And if you know synthesizers, ADSR is basically the shape of a waveform, the attack, decay, sustain, and release. So when you have a synthesizer and you're over here on like the filter, the amplifier section, that shapes the sound. Is it a sharp sound? Does it fade in? Okay. It basically, it's if you divide the wave into 4 pieces, you can shape each part of it. So, and that was interesting to me, because like he didn't understand how synths worked and what that was. So that had to be fun. And he mentioned a quote from Tom Waits that he said what kept him going as a songwriter is approaching instruments that he didn't know with like complete ignorance, because it's everything's a novelty and it's fun, and you're not weighed down by these constraints that you've built for yourself because you know X amount of information about whatever the instrument is. I thought that was really interesting, and I think it kind of shows in the songs. It's like more creative because you just kind of, you know.
Well, and that's the thing when you're going into it. And again, I'm not a musician. I couldn't play I couldn't play chopsticks on the piano probably, right? So
overrated.
But yeah, right. But if you're going basically into picking up a new instrument or something I've never done this before, right? You're going into it with that mentality and that experience. Fun. Well, at that point, the world's your oyster. You haven't like with the guitar, I imagine, obviously they're well versed in that. So they're kind of it's hard to almost get out of stuff that you've probably done before, I know. Right?
Yes.
You need to get out of that groove a little bit. And this is, I can imagine to be very liberating because now you have freedom to just explore. Let's just see what this fucking does, man.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, man, that makes complete sense. And I honestly can see that too when you look at some of the other bands we've looked at, and they do a lot of stuff on the guitar, but with alternate tunings. Because all of a sudden, when you have a new tuning, what doesn't stand anymore. And all of a sudden, you've got these new shapes and sounds that you didn't have before. So it makes it new again in a way. So I understand, I guess, why people do things with alternate tunings. Because you'll listen, as a guitar player, you can listen to a lot of stuff and you can hear it. You can hear what it is. You know what key it's in. But there's other stuff you're like, man, I could tell you what key that's in, but I don't know how they made that chord because I can't make sense of that. Sure. And I think that's cool. And so, if you're not a piano player, you just start messing around with the piano. And if you're a creative person, you'll find something you like. And they sure as shit did.
Right. Well, and I think a couple things is they didn't really, even when they went into the studio, they didn't go in with a whole bunch of ideas. And actually they were just simple ideas or little riffs or little samples and little pieces of music and stuff. Whereas Tom York said when they were when they were doing OK Computer, a lot of OK Computer was developed out when they were on the road and on tour doing sound checks, and they were developing these songs and whatnot.
Yeah.
But with this was a blank canvas, and it was a real struggle for them as a band. It almost broke them up because I think Ed O'Brien even said, he's like, well, wait a minute, like, okay, so we're not playing guitar on this. There's no drums. Like, what the fuck what do I do?
Yeah.
Like what's my role here? And they talked about doing a bunch of different sort of creative processes. There were certain points they recorded in a bunch of different places. And Tom York had little snippets and ideas. They did have some other parts of songs, but they were having a real tough time just getting stuff down and having it be like a coherent song. And at one point towards the end, Nigel Godrich, who's their producer, he actually split the band up sort of in two groups and had them work differently on things. And so I forget where it is, but basically he had, part of the band would come up with something, and then that piece would basically be given to the other group, and they'd have to, come up with something and adjust it. They even said that they talked about everybody kind of going off into their own room or their own area and just sort of dabbling and coming up with little things here and there. And just sort of experimenting that way.
Well, a lot of that makes sense. Because when I read like style and influences, one thing that they mentioned that really stuck out to me was Talking Heads Remain in Light, produced by Brian Eno. And I've watched some videos with Brian Eno, and he talks about like really interesting like exercises that he would do where he'd like have a bunch of cards or something, and a card would say to do this or to do that, just to get people to think and do things in a way that maybe they wouldn't otherwise do. And that was interesting. And another thing that they talked about was the band Can. And Can is what they would call a krautrock band, a German band from the 70s. And I have a couple of their records, and their music is very interesting. It's almost like the rock version of Bitches Brew, where it's like it's like a record of people finding the groove. You know what I mean? Because in a lot of times I feel like that when you listen to Bitches Brew, it's you're hearing them find the groove, and there's these moments of just absolute brilliance. And they said that like with Can, I think the thing was like they would record all this shit and then they would just cut up the tape and like make different things out of that. And which I think in like Idioteque and stuff like that, they clearly did.
Mm. And it's funny you say, I mean, obviously Can, but you referencing Miles Davis. Miles Davis was an influence for this album. They said
Charles Mingus.
Also, Charles Mingus. Also, Bjork's Homogenic was an influence as well.
Cool.
They talked about. They really kind of got into the more electronic DJ.
Well, yeah, because it says he was listening to a lot of Aphex Twin. And one thing I thought was interesting is that they also referenced the Beta Band. And I remember when we saw them the first time, which would have been on tour for this album, the Beta Band opened for them. Yeah,
is that so? I actually have it right here. We didn't go to the first one together, but I have the ticket stub right here. Because you went to Cuyahoga Falls, I went to Chicago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, but it was the same tour, so Beta Band's still open, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So
you went with Joe Boo, didn't you?
Grant Park. Yeah, Joe Boo, Jake Perry.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I went with the college crew.
Checked out some boomers and had a wild time.
Oh yeah,
very interesting.
Window pane. Gel.
Yeah. Yeah, so they recorded this in multiple studios. They started off in Paris and kind of didn't have a whole lot of luck there. It was just they couldn't really make it work. And
then it was Copenhagen.
I mean, part of me is like, okay, I was like, oh well, Paris isn't working. Let's go to Copenhagen. I mean, that'd be pretty badass to be a band where you could just kind of move around like that.
Well, the thing that got go on.
I was gonna say, well, then they moved on to the big sort of mansion style, which they recorded OK Computer in. And they ended up getting, I don't know if you read that, this huge old mansion they rented out. There was like, it hadn't been lived in for 20 years. It had like 300 rooms. 200 of them hadn't even been opened since World War II. Right there, Tom said there were rats everywhere, and they only occupied like this little tiny bit of the house. But he said it was really kind of freaky and sad and empty, kind of like in those horror movies where you're in this big old mansion or old house, and there's like sheets over the furniture, and cobwebs, and that it's like, dude, it's that, like that's what it was.
Well, one thing I was gonna say real quick that was interesting is, so you mentioned when they went to Copenhagen, and I guess now this is also a sign of like, I don't understand how people have this kind of money. So they went to Copenhagen, they ended up with 50 reels of tape at about 15 minutes a piece, nothing finished. I don't know. When they say reels of tape, I can only assume that they're talking about the standard for recording 24 track 2-inch tape. Dude, I don't know what a reel of that shit costs, but it's probably not fucking cheap. And to think not. they just to get ideas and dick around, like, dude, I would do that on a computer or my fucking phone, and they're still going into a studio and putting that shit on magnetic tape. Like, that's amazing that you have that kind of money.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't their money. They had the budget. I'm sure EMI was handling that. And when you put out an album like OK Computer,
you can do that. No, and it's really,
they'll give you a little leeway. But
I know it's really cool. But it's still at the same point, I'm just like, wow, that is a different fucking world.
It is, dude. Definitely a different world. And there was. You referenced, the Talking Heads and how they recorded
Remain in Light.
Remain in Light. And
I think that's coming this year too.
And so what's cool though is, Tom York had a lot of writer's block during this, and so I'm sure you read where we've seen a lot of artists do this, but I guess David Byrne did it as well, where just cutting up words and lyrics, putting them in a hat, picking them out, and that's how you construct the song. It's kind of like, remember on Exile on Main Street, that's how I think Mick Jagger wrote Casino Boogie. They just cut up phrases, threw them in the hat, put them together, move things around and whatnot. And that's a really cool way to do it. And once I read that, I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah,
for this album, because the phraseology is just very it's out there.
I've actually heard a lot of music where I feel like they did that. Yeah,
and this is definitely this one for sure. One interesting thing that I saw too, and I saw this in an interview with Tom York, is that he actually said this was, they were recording 99. I think most of it was 99. But that's when a lot of stuff was going on in Kosovo. And the house, the mansion that they stayed in, he said it was freaky. Part of the reason it was freaky because it was this big empty house, and they were near one of an air base. And at night, they would hear the bombers fly over every night leaving. And then they'd still be up recording at 6 a.m. and they'd hear the bombers coming back.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, and that was just a weird feeling. Just, hey, we're up and it's the middle of the night. It's quiet out. It's just such a weird feeling. And they just went over to Kosovo and basically bombed the shit out of them. And then now they're coming back. And he said that was also sort of, I think indirectly in influence for the mood and feel of the album.
Yeah. That is interesting. The only other, in terms of like spaces that they went to, the only other thing that I want to mention is Dorchester Abbey, which is a church, and they did the strings for How to Disappear completely in there. And I mean, what a just awesome an old church to do these strings in. I can only imagine of just what those isolated tracks sound like, because I mean, hell, in the context of the song, they're just beautiful.
They are. That's amazing. Well, the thing is too, and we haven't kind of gotten into this too much, but they recorded this album and the songs for this album and Amnesiac basically all at the same time. And then, they get done with the tracks and everything, and then they have to put it into like a coherent track list. And one thing I think Ed O'Brien said was that trying to just decide what tracks were going to go on, because they thought about maybe doing a double album, and then they decided to split up in two. So putting it out into one album, Ed O'Brien said that almost broke up the band.
Oh, wow.
Deciding what tracks would go on and the track order. And then he said it sounded like they had a fight, and then the next day everybody came back and was like, all right, let's just do this or whatever.
Well, one thing, and I believe, don't crucify me on this, but I believe it was a quote or a passage from Tom York that was talking about that very idea of like they have all this stuff. And so one thing that would come out if you're talking especially about Kid A into Amnesiac is the two versions of Morning Bell. And they're like, the Beatles put out like an album with a couple versions of Revolution. And I'm like, what the hell is that? But I think it's cool that they split it up.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I like the Kid A version a lot fucking better, but
so much better. Yes. So much better.
But
yeah. So the album came out, but actually this was back in the day when there were certain file sharing programs as Napster and LimeWire and all that stuff.
Pieces.
They
were awesome.
And guess what got leaked 3 weeks before the album was supposed to come out? Well, this did.
It's funny because even as a Radiohead fan and somebody who like may or may not have got shit off of there at one point or another in their life, I never heard that shit. I never heard any of the leaked stuff.
I didn't either, but I will say that I had known songs of OK Computer. I'd seen the music videos, but I was not a diehard Radiohead fan until Kid A came out. So I wasn't looking for that stuff.
Yeah, see, I remember us looking for that stuff after and finding stuff that was labeled as Radiohead And some of it was really cool. I remember this song. It was just simply called Poped. And I don't know what that is, but I remember liking that song a lot and it being titled as Radiohead, but it most certainly was not, least I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I have a CD somewhere that
has all that shit.
Yeah, where we downloaded the LimeWire stuff because we heard Amnesiac was coming out.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, I wonder what's going to be on it. So let's like rip a bunch of shit. And, so we downloaded it and like, oh, these are cool songs. And yeah, there was Popad. There was the one song, which was actually by the band Palo Alto, which is called Some Things Must Go This Way. That ended up that wasn't even Radiohead, but we didn't even know that at the time.
Well, and another one too, dude, by the band Grandaddy, Everything Beautiful is Far Away.
Far Away. Yes.
That is a wonderful song.
Dude,
and I can,
really good song.
Especially like not having access to as much information as we do now. You could,
oh, this could be it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and with my virgin ears, I didn't know any better. Now I could probably pick that shit up and be like, yeah, that's
yeah.
But yeah, that was cool. I should definitely look for that CD and see.
It's probably
see
with my mellow mixer.
Yeah, probably.
Now,
what do you say, Grim?
Well, before we jump into the tracks, because a lot of these things were used, I guess, in I think several occasions, there was some instruments that were used on this album that I think are worth noting. But now that I think about it, why don't we just jump into the songs, because the first song goes with the first one, and from there I kind of know where things are at. So pardon my French for jumping in there, but if we start with Everything in Its Right Place.
Wow. I mean, fuck, dude.
I know.
Well, I thought it was great that I read something where this is the song that they said it kind of brought everyone together. And I can certainly see that. Originally it was done on piano. Apparently Nigel was not impressed with it on piano. They tried to do it as a band. And then at one night, Tom York and Nigel, they transferred it to the Prophet 5 synth, and maybe a little something about that.
Well do.
Okay, because that sound, I don't know anything about that shit, but dude, the sound that this makes is
so beautiful. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Now I do like in a lot of live versions I've seen, and probably seeing it live, he plays it on the Rhodes piano.
Is that okay?
Which has a really warm feeling too, but not like the Prophet 5 was very important in terms of the release of synthesizers. So I have a couple of synthesizers behind me, analog synthesizers. Now the one farthest here, that can only play one note at a time. This Moog is called the Sub 37, and it's considered a paraphonic, so you can play two notes at the same time. Now the Prophet 5 was why it was so important was because it was a completely analog synthesizer. The challenge was always to have a completely analog synthesizer, so the sound is produced from electronic components, not a computer, not a chip, Okay. So that was the first analog synthesizer where you could play 5 notes at the same time. Why it's called the Prophet 5. And so there's a certain warmth, and anyone who listens to this song would tell you how warm. It's like being in a goddamn hot tub, right?
Yeah.
There is such a warmth to that song with just with the synthesizer, and I think that the way he plays it, the 5 notes allows it's enough. Yeah. Because usually when you have notes like or notes, when you have synthesizers that can only do certain things, like in this one, I can set a priority where it'll play like, it'll always play the highest note or it'll always play the last note I played. So as long as you did it on like the last note priority, the sound, you know, like something will have gradually like faded out when the next one comes in. So it doesn't sound like it's losing anything.
Okay.
And 5 notes at the same time is really pretty reasonable for like the way he plays the song and everything. And I mean, I you know, it's so fun. I can't believe I didn't know that until reading about this now, that's what he played. Because for the longest time I thought about it and I'm like, what the fuck would he have played that was available at that time? Because now there's a Prophet 10, which is analog and you can do 10 notes. But I mean,
damn.
At the time, that was probably about the best you could do, even in '99.
Yeah, dude, that's great, and that's why we have you on the show. It's because you know that shit, and I sure as hell don't. So, and I mean, I don't think you could ask for a better way to start the album. I mean,
no, dude,
just those oh man, those notes like that,
so beautiful,
it's
man.
Insane.
It's actually like every time I listen to the album, I'm like, I want it quiet. I want it turned way the fuck up. And dude, I want to just like, it's like a hot shower coming down. Like
it is.
It's just amazing, dude.
Yeah,
so good.
I've never heard anything like it before.
No, me neither.
And it's so simple. I mean, if you think about how simple that is.
There's no build up. There's no fucking sounds. That just.
I think that's a testament to how we were talking about earlier, how, you know, he had never really done it before. He never really experimented and played. His even piano playing was very basic at best. Yeah. But sometimes, you know, it's not about playing the most notes. It's about playing the right notes. And that's what he really does here.
And I like how they chop up the voice too. I believe that's done with like a chord chaos pad. They made this, or at least I've seen it. I think I've seen it done live with that. But it was this. We actually have pictures. We had one at the house. Remember Otis, the dog playing on that? Yeah. That was a chaos pad, and like you could basically like throw a sample into this thing and manipulate it with your hands and make it like go. Right. It was like an XY axis pad that you could do.
It's like a touchpad. Yeah. Well, and what it's the way they chop up the lyrics, the way his voice sounds on this song is just phenomenal. Again, going back to the Prophet 5, I love when because there's a lot of
filter opens up. Wow.
It's when they go. It's after he does his last like try to say, and then you really hear the fuzz and the synth come in. Just big again, because it's sort of the featured instrument or the featured beat or sound I should say at that point. And man, it just sounds so just like thick and
I could never figure out, because on a lot of synths you have like controlled voltage out, so basically you could plug something in for a given parameter, like in this case like the filter, which, like, you know how it does that wah, like it's through a wah pedal. Well, basically you have the filter, and what you can do with some synths, at least with these ones, you can run that through a pedal. So as you're playing, you can just use the pedal to open it up to get that wah.
Awesome.
And that's what I could never figure out. Like if he had that rigged up through a CV pedal or some sort of controller and someone else was doing that. Or what? But it's so brilliant the way it's used in the song. It's just like you know,
so good.
1,000 pedal Lotus.
Pedal Lotuses.
Phil Lesh.
Phil Lesh would be proud. Yeah. All right. So I think we should probably move on now to the self-titled track, Kid A. Mm-hmm. And now, from my understanding, Johnny wrote this song, came up with all the stuff to it, and it's. And then Tom just kind of talked through it with weird chopped up words, and they manipulated them. And, you know, to me, this is like the strange. There's maybe one other one, but I think this is the strangest song on the album. It just, to me, it sounds like something sort of from outer space or another planet.
Oh, for sure. If there was a time capsule for Earth, like they may want to put this on that album. You know?
Yeah, I think they should. They should do it. It should just be this album. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Now, I don't know the full instrumentation on this, but I do think that the backbeat, I think that he's probably doing that with his modular, but that could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure with the vocals, he's using that instrument that he's played live called the Andes Martineau.
Okay.
Onde Martineau. And it's the thing that he plays with it has a ring. So you can it's basically
like a national anthem.
Yeah, it's basically like a primitive synthesizer, and you can either play it with a keyboard or you can use this ring that runs along a wire. And the idea was that by doing that, you could give it sort of a theremin-ish sound.
Right.
And it's so cool because it's so old that, like, I mean, dude, the thing dates back to like the 20s.
Damn.
It was invented in 1928. And so this was before even like your standard analog oscillator like that's in a synthesizer. This is like all vacuum tubes to get the sound. Yeah. I mean, these things are so cool, really interesting. So I had read that they used this through a vocoder. So a vocoder basically takes two things and mixes them. So Johnny could play the melody on the Andy Martineau, and then you could mix that with Tom York's words to get that sort of
yeah. Well, I just feel like this song has such a. I almost feel like this is their best like Mr. Bungle impression. Like it has this weird sort of cartoony feel to
what
it.
Mr. Bungle album would it have been on?
Oh, that's to let us know below.
Yeah.
If you like,
subscribe, and comment below.
I don't know if we did that, but whatever. But this song also, it has a real lullaby sound.
Yeah, it does.
That's really, it's so chill. And there was, I mean, I forgot to bring this up earlier, but I think it was Tom in an interview said that I don't think it was the band who brought it into the record company, but someone from their camp or representation brought it into like kind of the execs to be like, hey, here's a new Radiohead album. And they basically said like after the first couple songs, they started sweating bullets because they're like, where's the guitar? And it's just really not there. And I was just like, man, I was like, can you imagine being a record exec coming off fucking hot ass OK Computer? And the first song is Everything in Its Right Place. And then the second song is Kid A and being like,
what the fuck is that?
This is not what we thought we were going to get. So,
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think moving on now, you want to move on? Go to the National Anthem. Which, dude, I had no idea about this, but apparently Tom York wrote the bass line for this when he was like 16 years old and in high school. Like that, I was just like, I don't know.
It doesn't surprise me. It's basically,
I mean, it's not,
three total notes.
Yeah, but
it's a major third interval that goes to a minor third interval, and it's amazing, and I love it. But it's not,
Flea is like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But the thing that I found interesting too is though they actually recorded the bass and drums for this song. Tom plays the bass line for this song, but they recorded the bass and drums in '97, and were going to have it be a B-side on OK Computer, but then they just decided to save it, and I'm kind of glad that they did. Yes, good save. And what they did with it is pretty awesome. So,
oh yeah, and so again, Johnny Greenwood playing the Aund Martineau on this to get that, which is really cool. And I think the drums are incredible. But dude, the horns at the end, I mean, are really a standout for me.
Oh my gosh, dude, I mean, the bass drives the song, but and even the drum beat, it's like, wow, okay, well, I guess we got, after the first two songs, I guess we got kind of more of a standard, drum sound that we're used to. But yeah, those horns, man, when they come in, they're really kind of funny, almost like they got a little attitude. Yeah, like it's like, I just feel like it's got some attitude to it.
Well, and that's what was interesting for me to read, because they cited Miles Davis as an influence, and in listening to this, I felt like I could hear a lot of Bitches Brew in some of the way, like the interplay between the horns. But what they really cite for this part is there's this section that they referred to as Organized Chaos, and it was on the Town Hall concert by Charles Mingus, and apparently his instructions for the musicians was to sound like a traffic jam. That's it does.
Yeah, I think that's what they told. Yeah, I think that's what they told the musician, or the brass section playing during this song. They're like, yeah, make it sound like a traffic jam.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. That's what I meant to say. But but with the Mingus as an influence. But yeah, and it really does. And dude, I know that they also played Idioteque, and I'm sure we'll get into it when we get to that. But dude,
probably
there was nothing more awesome when they went on SNL.
Oh yeah, and they had
played this song, and I think everyone was like, "What in the fuck just happened?"
Dude, yeah, my dad saw that on SNL, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it was actually during Idioteque," and he was like, "I thought the guy was having a seizure." And I was like, it's okay. I can understand that. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It was pretty wild.
And I mean, who goes on SNL and is playing the owned Martineau and the fucking modular synthesizer with patches and shit during Idioteque? I mean, that to me, that was like that is one of the greatest live musical statements ever. I feel like that performance was pretty amazing.
It was. Well, I think now we are ready to move on to How to Disappear Completely. Mm-hmm. And this is this is definitely one of my favorites of probably all time. Songs. And it's really interesting to be like, wow, this is one of my favorites of all time. And when you really think about it, the song it's not overly complex. There's nothing.
It's just great.
It has some nice layers to it. Really nice build up. It's smooth, just good acoustic strumming. The wow is just such a Yeah. I mean, fuck, dude. When I heard this song, I was like, whoa. Mm-hmm. All right. It brings you to a place, and it's great when a song can kind of do that. And it's very I don't know, it's one of those sort of reflective songs that you can kind of get lost in.
Well, and one thing I didn't realize, I had read or heard that Radiohead were fans of REM, but apparently it was Michael Stipe who kind of gave Tom York this mantra of when the shit's getting too crazy, just remind yourself I'm not here. This isn't happening.
This isn't happening.
That's really cool. That's kind of
take that. Yeah. And put it in a song. Oh, it's so great. Man.
And one of their best ones ever.
Yeah. Well, I've seen interviews, or not interviews, but read articles and whatnot, where there was a time, I don't know if this is still the case, but there was a time where Tom York was like, yeah, this is the best song Radiohead's ever done. And I mean, I'm certainly not going to argue with that because it's one of my favorites of theirs, but I did find it interesting that he's like, wow, okay. Yeah. Usually, I don't know, a lot of times bands may not say that, or it's a song you maybe
they'll think about it a little expect. More.
Yeah, think about it. But this song it just sounds really good. It builds up nicely, and before you know it, once you get kind of towards the end, there's a lot of layers and sort of full sound going on.
Dude, and the strings.
The strings. Woo. There's a little but there's even light percussion in the background. But yeah, those strings really, really, really tie the room together. Mm-hmm. Really, really tie the room together.
Yeah, do they ever?
Well, here's the thing though, Grim. We are here. And this is happening.
And track 5 is fucking Treefingers.
All right. I think I asked you this, and I don't know if you're able to find this out. I know I looked, I had heard what it was or what these sounds were, but what are these sounds? Because it sounds like they're weird sounds run through something.
I had read that he took like some of these crazy affected guitar tracks that Ed O'Brien did and just sort of arranged them like in a, like Pro Tools, or I think they mentioned like Cubase or some digital editing software that they would use. And, he basically just used that as almost its own instrument and just kind of took the samples and made them something that they weren't before, which is interesting, because with all with the talk earlier about like, well, not everyone plays on every track and there's no guitar in the album, and you're like, well, technically Treefingers is guitar.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the record company wanted a guitar. Here you go.
They fucking got it. Yeah,
they fucking got it. So
whole song, just guitar.
Just guitar. It may not sound like the standard guitar, but yeah, and I imagine most people watching this are probably Radiohead fans, but if you're not, this is a strictly instrumental song. But it to me, and we've always had this type of song and kind of bonded over, dude, this is a good mid-trip song. It's just that deep, introspective.
Is
like, man,
it ever?
We're
just let your mind just
cool out.
Yeah, your mind just like the universe comes into focus.
Yeah. And the shit is right. Mm-hmm. It is good. Yeah, I mean, it's such a good song. I really like it as sort of a, it's a good just middle moment just to kind of chill out, because then things get a little optimistic, don't they? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure when when they were playing this for the record company, the executives were like fucking finally. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, this is almost, probably for them was almost torture listening to it. But finally we get Optimistic, which you could certainly say is the most optimistic song on the album. It's the most sort of upbeat, radio friendly. Like, we might have a single here. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I really love about it, I mean, it's cool because there's obviously the acoustic. I love the drums, man. They just, that tribal kind of beat.
Yes.
And it's so fucking good, right? Yeah. Dude, just the song really moves forward, which I think is a perfect song to put right after Treefingers, after you've kind of chilled the fuck out for a little bit. It's like, all right, well, I guess I got to get up and go.
Yeah.
But I definitely dig it. And apparently, though, at this point in, I think, his life, I think she's actually passed on. But Tom York's partner was Rachel Owen, and she's the one who kind of said, try the best you can. The best you can is good enough, which I think is
interesting.
It's I mean, obviously the song is optimistic, but it was almost giving him the kind of reassurance when there were times where he got frustrated with sort of the band's progress and everything. So.
It's interesting though, because it doesn't, I see what you mean, like up tempo, but it is a very still a dark sounding song.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is dark. I think if you look at it with all the other songs in the album, I could say that this one maybe doesn't fit. Now, that is not in any way a hint at what I might be scratching, because for me, it's not.
So don't even fucking try it.
Yeah, don't even fucking think about it. But dude, even Ed O'Brien said he kind of felt slightly embarrassed by the song, because he felt it was more kind of like, it was kind of like OK Computer, where they have, the acoustic guitar, and they do have the electric kind of playing. I mean, it's not, they're having like awesome solos and stuff like that, but do I think it would fit on OK Computer? Absolutely not. But he felt, when you compare it, this album as a whole versus that album as a whole, it does stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but the guitar's got a real nice gritty sound that I've always liked. I imagine him playing like a old hollow body or something through like a amp with a fucking cracked speaker, just to get that,
I could definitely
that grittiness.
Hey, I love the ooze, man. Like right when it starts, it's really cool. It's just like a simple thing to do, but I really like that. And dude, right at the end before it goes in limbo, that little jazzy breakdown that they get into, that is such a nice little touch. I really, really like that. And I think that makes the transition into In Limbo just like really good.
And I like In Limbo because In Limbo, I guess you could argue it's kind of driven by the Rhodes of that.
Yeah.
But the guitar behind it, I've played this, and it's a really interesting dark riff, but I love it. I mean, it's so good.
As a non-musician, well, it's interesting to hear you say that you've kind of played it, because as a non-musician, it sounds weird. It doesn't. I don't. Why does it sound weird? Because it doesn't sound like a traditional sort of progression.
It isn't, and that's what's strange about it. Because I guess. Hold on a second.
Motherfucker. All right. Well, while you go get that, I'll just carry the episode. So for me in Limbo, other than Kid A, this is definitely I think the next strangest song on the album.
So the part that I think is weird, right? So or weirder, but I like it. So you're kind of in like C, right? So you're going. That's the chord change that I think throws people, because to go from C to that E minor is just kind of you know what I mean? Come back. That's the part that's
so weird. It is weird. But then towards the end, dude, it gets in. So this song to me is sort of really hypnotic in ways too.
Yeah. And the end reminds me kind of a Karma Police. How like the synth kind of
swirling sound, man. Yeah, totally, right? And it gets sort of disorienting, which is obviously fits the album really well.
Okay with me, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, it's like, dude, I'm putting on Kid A. I want to get disoriented. Like, where am I? I don't know. But dude, moving on, and I know this will not be a scratch for you. It ain't a scratch for me.
Oh.
One of my.
You'd be a real asshole for this to be your scratch. No offense, if it is.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But dude, Idioteque.
Yeah. Now, one thing with this, I didn't realize that there was a sample in Idioteque. It makes perfect sense to me now that I think about it, because I believe the sample is those notes. Those notes that are just kind of ugly together, but they work. And so when I was looking through that,
I'm looking through you. Where did you go?
I can't remember the song, but the artist
Mild und Lycée
by Paul Lansky.
Yes.
I want to listen to that. I apologize for not having listened to it prior to doing this episode, because I really want to listen to it and hear where that fucking sample is from. Because it's one of those things you'd be able to pick out when you heard it.
Well, from what I heard is Johnny Greenwood basically came up with like this 50 minute recording. And I think he used a sample from this song. I don't know, maybe samples from other songs. Basically, he put all this together and he gave it to Tom York. And Tom listened to it and was like, oh, and then he found like this section of that 50-minute piece. And it was basically like a 40-second section. And he was like, wow, that was fucking genius. all right, let's just cut this up and we'll make a song of it. And
Dude,
yeah.
Reading it, I see how that would sound crazy, but in a way, I don't think it is that crazy because, like, if you get into this thing called granular synthesis, and it's basically where
I've yet to dabble.
Well, yeah. So you're taking, instead of like playing notes on a keyboard and that's what you're doing, you're taking pre-existing sounds and you're manipulating and synthesizing those sounds. So at the end of a more track, maybe I'll use this one for the music bed here, but called Leftovers. Friend of the show, Forrest, did this for me, where he took Leftovers and used it as the granular base of the synthesis. And dude, he sent me something that was like 45 minutes of him just taking the sound of the song and just fucking destroying it. And I found little snippets that were like, you know, maybe 30, 40 seconds worth. And that's what I used. But it's interesting because I listened to all of what he did and it's just this awesome experimentation. And it becomes a question of, what sample do you want him to take from the song and how do you want him to like abuse it? Right. And that's what you use. And so when I read that, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense to me, but that's really fucking cool that that's what they did.
Dude, that is fucking cool. I mean, it's Radiohead. Of course it's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is the beat and the story behind the song really, really great, but dude, some of the lyrics, man, I mean,
cut the kids in half.
We're
still on Idioteque. Yeah, we're still okay.
But
yeah, the lyrics are really good.
This is really happening. This is really happening. Take the money and run. And the way his vocals sound there's something about it when he sings, this is really happening, and then the second time he sings, this is really happening. The way there's something at the end. There's some stress he really has into it. There's not like a crunch or a peak, but there's some in his it's strained. His voice. It's so strained and sounds awesome. I love it.
Well, and I never thought about this until now, but it's so interesting that like in the first half of the album we're hearing about I'm not here, this isn't happening, and then it's kind of like you know what, this shit is real and it is happening. It is happening. So,
well, and you know, there's the Ice Age coming, and that actually
let me hear both sides.
Yeah, let me hear both of them. But that actually kind of goes back a little bit to the artwork, which Stanley Donwood had done a lot of the artwork for Kid A. I think he had done their OK Computer stuff. Actually, I think his work went all the way back to the Bends. And so he painted all this stuff on like large canvases with knives and sticks. And then he would photograph the paintings that he painted, take them and then take those photos into Photoshop and then manipulate that. Now that is fucking cool, man. I really dig it.
It is cool. And you know, like when I saw this cover, it reminds me of a fucking floppy disk computer game. That's what I see when I see the mountains. It reminds me of something on a floppy disk, like where you'd have to put in like C / whatever to start the fucking game, like way back in the MS DOS days. Like that's what it reminds me of. Well, maybe the 3.5-inch discs, but either way,
yeah. Well, and part of it too is they came across the website, which is like the World Watch Institute, and it had all these scary statistics about like the ice caps melting and the weather patterns changing and shit.
Interesting.
And that's why if you have the collector's edition too, at the very back, they give like all these stats about
asshole.
You know, the Arctic ice sea has shrunk by 6%.
Find it.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Yeah. No, I remember that too from that book, and I thought that was interesting, and it's interesting now that this is still a hot conversation piece in 2021, and this came out 21 years ago.
Science real, man? Does it exist? No, it's just a fucking weather pattern, bitch. Yes.
So like, Morning Bell.
Yeah. Oh, dude. dude, what is that the Hammond organ? What are they using?
Rhodes, man.
Rhodes. I'm sorry, Rhodes. Yeah. Oh, dude, that in 100%. I don't know. You guys let us know below if you prefer the Kid A Morning Bell or the Amnesiac.
I would like to know that.
Because man, let's take a pull on that shit.
I will say the Amnesiac
the
one is weird and interesting in its own way, but man, dude, just the beat with that, the Rhodes is just so thick and so smooth, you know, and it's.
Dude, the drum beat, the way it moves along.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's fucking good, dude.
And the Rhodes you can use the Rhodes in a lot of ways, and you can get a lot of different sounds from it. One of those sounds being what people describe as a very bell-like tone. And
makes sense.
You know, it makes sense with the title of the song, but they do kind of get that bell, a little more of the bell-like tones from it, as opposed to it being like kind of gritty or fuzzy. It's really clean, it's really thick, and it sustains a lot. You know, they really did a great job of like getting the bell type tones.
Totally. Well, you know, I actually. For me, myself, with life experience, I always associated this song with divorce.
I think it is about divorce, is it not?
Well, I don't know, because this is a song where I think he chopped up the words and he threw them in a hat and picked them out. And they certainly make sense. When you release me, you can keep the furniture, cut the kids in half. Like,
dude,
I mean,
I swear I read somewhere that this song was about a divorce.
Maybe it is. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I don't know what a morning bell has to do with it. But
well, me neither. But someone's got to drop the kids off at school.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the morning bell at school. There we go. But dude, the way it's sung, his voice again sounds fucking so good on this song. And I don't know if it. There's parts where it sounds really clean and clear. There's other parts where I feel like it has maybe a little effect on it. Not as like metallic, I guess, as National Anthem, but dude, it's pretty amazing. I'm a big fan of Morning Bell. Did you find anything or no? Should I just keep talking?
Nothing that I would consider like concrete. You know, it wasn't like a quote by Tom York that said, yes, this song is clearly about divorce. So, but I think that a lot of fans and critics or whatever would say that even if you put lyrics in a hat and cut them up, somehow you just got the ones that were all about divorce in one spot.
As chance would have it, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we move on to the final song, track number 10, Motion Picture Soundtrack. So apparently Tom York had recorded a piano version of this song during the OK Computer sessions. But it's saying during Kid A, he used, and maybe you know something about this, the harmonium pedal organ. Do you know anything about that?
A harmonium?
Okay. Yeah,
the Beatles used the harmonium several times.
And then Johnny Greenwood added some harp samples. He said basically they wanted
harmonium.
They wanted to make a kind of create a 1950s like Disney.
Yeah. And they did. I think they really did. Just a quick side note, though, so that we don't get crucified here. I'm pretty sure the harmonium and a pedal organ are two different things. This, I think, is a pedal organ. The harmonium is, I believe, something that you like wind. It's a keyboard instrument that you kind of like wind, I think.
Okay.
But you're right. This is definitely a pedal organ. You know, like, I don't know, my grandparents had one in their cabin, and you'd sit there with the pedals and pull out the stops. And I mean, it has a real kind of.
Well, you can hear almost the mechanical sounds of it in this song.
Oh, yeah. And even if you have one that's like not shitty like that one was, you could never get away from.
It's kind of like you're playing the accordion, right? You hear
sure.
You know.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Yeah. Dude, and this song has a very it has such a nice like old feel to it. Like that's what I really like about it. It sounds old, right? But it's also very, pretty melancholy. Almost, I will say though, with in a sense, sort of with Optimistic, I feel like maybe it doesn't fully fit the album in a sense because it doesn't have like the beats, it doesn't have the electronics, but the perfect place for this song is right at the end, right? I mean, that's
and I do feel like it sounds like the title, like some sort of a motion picture soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely. It's well, yeah, with that Disney 50s thing. But yeah. I think it's a great way to end the album, but it's also cool because it ends and then we're silent for a bit and then it fades back, it fades out, and then it fades back up, and we get the harp coming back for a few bars, and they play through and everything, and it's just very, very dreamy. Just kind of being like,
it is very dreamy. Yeah.
Is this a dream? Is this a dream? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, well, Grim, man,
we're at what someone called the witching hour now, dude.
Dude, we are, dude. Amazingly for a 10-song album, but look, this is one of our favorites.
Yeah,
like we knew, look, it was just gonna happen.
Yeah, it was gonna be more than an hour.
Yeah, sorry,
not
sorry, actually not sorry. Yeah. Do you have something better to do? Like, I mean, probably most of you watching right now should probably be working, but you'd much rather be listening to us.
I know. I'd listen while you work. That's what I do to my favorite podcast.
Yeah, shit, I just straight up watch and kick my feet up. Like, I just don't work. Yeah, so
that's actually a good call too.
Yeah, what do you do? Oh, I'm unemployed. So all right, Grim. Who's on the tee? I think it's your turn. I'm pretty sure. I think I took the tee last time. So I wonder if we're gonna get a fucking. Are we gonna do an Islanders Capitals here, buddy? I don't know,
dude.
Man.
I thought that we were not. But for some reason, listening to it today, I feel like I kind of changed my scratch a little bit.
Ooh.
I know that I've probably said a lot of times that Treefingers would have been my scratch, right? But aside from like the mid trip, so I was not tripping today as I was working, but I was listening to this album while I was doing some work. And man, I really I think appreciated Treefingers. Not that I haven't appreciated it before, but for some reason today I was like, I need this right now. Like today was fucked up. I need this right now. And so with that said, I am not going to scratch Treefingers, which I was dead set on scratching probably since we started talking about this game, this podcast, any of it. Because I know this is one of the first albums we talked about.
Yeah, definitely.
Like back in Hawaii, we were talking about this on the beach.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I would scratch motion picture soundtrack, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm really, really excited. I mean, I can't blame you for that. I'm really excited you did not fucking scratch Treefingers. Dude, Treefingers, I feel like I could just listen to that song for like can I just hear that for like an hour? Like I feel like, dude, you could hear that song while you're like getting a massage.
Oh God, on repeat. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even need a happy ending at that point. So
oh no.
So but I will say we're going to fucking overtime.
Oh boy.
I am going to be the New York Islanders. So, yes, if I had to scratch one song, it would be motion picture soundtrack because I like the middle relief that Treefingers gives.
Yeah, I do too.
I do. I feel like motion picture soundtrack maybe doesn't fit the album like some of the other songs do. Still, I mean, dude, yes, everybody, we get it. It's Kid A. It's a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah,
like,
you wouldn't. You would not want to scratch anything.
No, but if you saw my copy of Kid A earlier, and I had to pick one,
you're skating on thin ice. Yeah. Islanders Capitals,
and I think there probably have been a handful of times where after I get done with Morning Bell, I'm like, all right, next. I'll do that. So tiebreaker, which is really tough now. Now we're getting into the weeds.
Oh, yeah.
The weeds. What
So
do you
I got to
say,
go
Grim?
first again.
I think you do. I mean,
Then I'd have to do Treefingers. I don't want to, but I'd have
I know.
to.
Well, then fuck, I gotta do that too.
So we'll do the
Because-
Siren because technically we'd be in double overtime. But any more even talk of scratching is blasphemy, and just
On a double album,
it's
maybe.
fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a double album maybe, but dude, not with this one. It's only
We're not
10
turning
songs.
Kid A into a fucking EP, so
Yeah.
yeah. Now, I mean, here's the thing. I love all these songs. I love Treefingers. I think it's again
The whole
perfect
album's just
in the spot that it's in. But again, we like to play. But everyone, let us know your scratch. Like,
yeah.
I know
I'd be
it sucks.
interested.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think people would pick? I don't know. I think
I could see a lot of people picking Kid A.
Kid A. I think people could pick Kid A. I think some people would go for Treefingers motion picture soundtrack. I think some people could go, well, I could see some in Limbos. I could see some optimistics for it being sort of like this sort of not fitting the album necessarily.
Yeah, there
it's-
are a handful though where I'm sorry, like if you scratch these, you're a fucking dickhead. I'm sorry. You can't scratch everything in its right place. Or fucking How to Disappear Completely. Nothing's off limits, but it should be. Don't
How
be
dare you.
that asshole. Yeah, for real.
At the same time, we're being those assholes.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
If you're gonna scratch everything in its right place, you know what? Just throw the fucking album away.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
that
it's
point.
probably one of the best, greatest.
But please
intro
like and
songs
subscribe,
ever.
and thank you for watching.
Yeah, definitely do that. So, on that
we
note,
we do appreciate you.
we do, even if you don't appreciate us. So,
Yeah, which I
right.
get.
yeah. I mean, nobody's perfect. As hard as we might try. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what you'd scratch. It's time to go. The Dude and
One
Grim
sip left.
Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by Moore and the Tims. Copyright 2021.